Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we are looking at NBA Thursday here. 5 games on the slate now, coming down off of that 11-gamer. We've got best bets in this one for you guys. Also have player props up in a separate episode, so make sure you do subscribe to that channel and check everything out that we're bringing you moving forward. Also a good time to let you know that every Friday is the email newsletter on thelines.com, keeping you up to date on everything you need to know in the sports betting world. Also have Nate and my parlay that we have, special bonus parlay. We're only throwing that in the newsletter every Friday. 3-0 on those babies. So looking to get over 4 units, probably get closer to 5, maybe in this one, maybe 6. We'll see what we come up with, but definitely want to make sure to check that out. Pretty good night last night, but we're now getting into a situation where every single game except for one has teams on a back-to-back. So we're diving through this injury news, but we've got some early looks for you guys. So let's go ahead and jump into that first best bet you've got, Nate.
Yeah, it's March Madness, but we're actually doing pretty well the last week, sifting through the tea leaves to figure out who's trying and whatnot. But I mean, the one team with two contenders here, Bucks Lakers, and I like under 227.5. It's back up to where it opened at this point. I think that's a good number. I think the defenses will be on here. Lakers offense might suffer a little bit on a back-to-back. The Bucks had a pretty sound defensive strategy against them last time out, which is, what you've seen against a Luka team for years sometimes is like, go ahead, let him get 40. Just stay home on the shooters. Like, let him shoot 27 times. Everybody gets iced out. Like, nothing really going to bother us beyond that. So him and AR just Cook, they had pretty good offensive numbers, but Lakers only got to 106. Bucks have been struggling a little offensively lately. And playing slower in the last 7, only 97 pace. They are coming off back-to-back losses and a little players meeting with Doc and Dame and Giannis apparently. But that just indicates they're going to come out playing very strong defensively. They're 20-9 to the under after a loss this season. So that's solid. Definitely some solid defensive numbers in terms of fourth limiting paint points in these last 7, second limiting second chance, and second limiting free throws, which the Lakers are going to try to lean on free throws wise. Other end of the floor, they are not crashing. They're like one of the worst second chance teams. They're not getting out in transition. They're not scoring in the paint somehow. Giannis somehow did not go off in this last matchup, even though Jackson Hayes wasn't out there. And that's pretty much the key here as far as look, I would like to take the Bucks. -3 here with the rest advantage, but I'm like, Jackson Hayes is a legitimate defensive center, and he completely changes the way the Lakers are able to play defensively, play X's and O's. They have a 107 defensive rating with him versus 124, and they're 0-4 without him. They went under in 8 of their first 9 out of the All-Star break with Hayes locking down the middle, and that was with LeBron playing, and now they're just not as potent offensively. They've gone over in their last 2 against Denver and San Antonio, which are frankly embarrassing defensive teams. And the Bucks are not that. Like I said, they're going to be motivated. They're going to be locked in. They have a good strategy against Luka, who tends to play at like a 96 pace wherever he's at. He's going to be going slow, especially on the back-to-back. So I like this one to stay under.
Yeah. I definitely agree with this pick. I was looking at it in the same vein as well. And I mean, for Milwaukee, yeah, like they've been at their best this season when they're playing defense. And maybe at times that's sort of been something that's their offense has suffered at times as a result from needing to go with slightly more defensive minded lineups. But that's when they've been at their best. So we'll see if they continue to seek that trend. But let me go over to that Chicago Sac game that's going to be on the West Coast out here. I guess it's sort of an interesting game with all the trades that they've made in the last couple of years, or signings and whatnot. I'm taking the under though, 234.5. It did get bet down a couple points, and I'm assuming that people who bet this down already from the open are seeing some of the stuff that I'm seeing, probably projecting that Giddey doesn't play in this game, and that's a lot of what this is predicated on, right? Is Giddey not being out there and being the guy that's the glue guy, and what's an extra glue guy, right? Like a little bit above that, because it's so important to the offense more than just keeping the ball moving and keeping everybody happy. It's like there is no ball movement, there is no offense if he's not out there. Kobe White is not a true point guard. I hope we all really can agree on that at this point. He can't really get above 4 or 5 assists with or without Giddey. It's not what he's looking to do. But if you look at the differences with and without Giddey, it's been pretty stark this season. Overall, 114 O rating with him, down to 111 without him. That's only gotten worse in the last 20 games and more pronounced because of the fact that Zach LaVine isn't there to sort of cover up when he's not around, right? So they're not playing with the same guys guys that they were playing with at the beginning of the season either. Still not going to probably see Lonzo anymore at this point. So there's not going to be much pace. There's not going to be much in terms of keeping that offensive rating going. The pace, speaking of that, with Giddey, they're up 2 possessions per 100. Essentially, they're up to about a 102 pace with him and 100 pace without him on the season. Again, things that keep getting more pronounced with Zach LaVine gone in the last 20 games as well. And the D rating gets better. 119 defensive rating with him in their last 20 games versus 113 defensive rating without him. A lot better options on defense when he's not on the floor, obviously, including, to a degree, Kevin Huerter, who is a good enough athlete to stay in front of a decent amount of guys up top, much more so than Giddey anyways, although I don't think he's making all defensive teams anytime soon. Red Velvet's still a better defender than Giddey in that sense, and we'll be seeing probably an uptick to about 34 minutes in these games where he's playing without him. I guess you could say like Herter could help them in terms of the spot up shooting against Sac, but like even in the last few games, Sac has been so much more defensive minded. I mean, the last 5 have been terrible because they've played the second hardest schedule. They've been playing all world beaters over their last 5, and really even 10 games. They've got the third hardest strength of schedule over their last 10, but the pace is down to 25 for them. The offensive rating is at about 17th. And most importantly, they're not really letting teams get out in transition. Finally, they finally started to limit fast break points where they were middle of the pack to bad for most of the season. They're back up into the top 10, limiting that stuff there. Maybe some De'Aaron Fox not being around and getting back, that kind of stuff. But it's definitely been a change here since the sort of change in the roster. So I'm going to keep going with these sack unders that keep hitting.
Yeah, maybe no Vooch as well, right? I mean, on a back to back, I don't think he's played on back to back since the trade deadline. So that means Zach Collins. That means more physicality, better defense. Honestly, Zach Collins and Joe Val just kind of beating up on each other down low, keeping this thing in the mud. The last few Kings games have just been absurd shooting, positive shooting, right? I mean, if that comes home, you're in good shape. And Chicago, I found has actually been one of the best teams guarding above the break threes in the last 10 in the last month or so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still like Zach LaVine's revenge if he's out there, but there's also a chance he missed something. We don't know what the personal absence was about. Was he just waiting for this one and didn't want to play last night, or is he actually attending to a family matter and he's not going to be out there, and that's going to limit the offense even more?
Right. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. I just want to say it's kind of crazy that in the last 10 games, the third best defense in the league is the Chicago Bulls in terms of defensive rating. So you're right that they've sort of tweaked how they're playing as well.
Yeah, they're tryhards. So are the Brooklyn Nets, but I don't think they're going to be in this game against the Pacers. -8.5, it's staying. I mean, it's dangerous to fade the Nets, but when they sit both Cam Johnson and Cam Thomas, I'm not scared. They are not a competent NBA team, not even close, without both those guys. I mean, frankly, without Cam Johnson, they're 3-13. They lost their first 9 without him, and then got a weird stretch going where they beat the Rockets twice. And I don't know, that says more about the Rockets at that stage, but -12 net without Cam. Right after that, they got him back in the lineup, lost by 17 to the Wizards. So they were still missing Cam Thomas at that point. Without Cam Thomas, they have an offensive rating that's 7 points worse, and you're not going to keep pace with the Pacers if you don't have a decent offense going. I mean, Halliburton could actually be back for this one. They've been lighting it up regardless without him, but with him in there, since the All-Star break, they've won 6 of 7 at home, 5 of those by double digits. Could certainly run away with this one. He was really diming up before he missed a couple games with that back. The last time out, I mean, no Cam Johnson. They only scored 99 at home against Indy, and they needed 33 second chance points to get there. So a third of their points are coming because Indy didn't box out, and a bunch more are coming in the fast break. Indy's been much better in those areas lately. D'Lo actually played in that one, right? I mean, he's just been he's been basically a non-factor. I mean, and sometimes a negative factor for the Nets in terms of he's just out there punching the clock, playing his 20 minutes, and Nembhard actually shut him down when he was with the Lakers last time these teams they met. But I mean, yeah, just look at some of the results when they don't have Cam Johnson. Lost by 30 to the Sixers. The Sixers, who couldn't beat them, beat anybody for a while. Lost by 60 at the Clippers. They're still only 2-8 in March. They have covered some games lately, but really struggled defending the paint and scoring in the paint. And frankly, if you don't score in the paint, the Pacers are pretty good at defending you. That's their biggest weakness.
Yeah, 100%. That's going to continue to be their weakness. And I think that if you're attacking a team that can't get there, to your point, especially without ball movement of any kind, it gets bad out there, man. When you see that offense without either of the Cams, especially, even if you have D'Lo out there, it's a lot of like, oh man, it's the end of the shot clock. Keon Johnson, can you get that 3 up, right? So that's going to be what we see in this game as well. I kind of like an under on like D'Lo assists and things like that. I don't think it's going to get too good, but let me go here, finish off. Kind of tough with these 5 games, kind of tough, but we do have one game that is at least already has that full injury report out for both teams. That's the only game. It is the Raptors and the Dubs, and it is a 14.5-point spread, but you can get a nice little negative correlation from the way I'm going to play this here to get plus money if you take Curry to go under 25.5 points. Yes, I said under, and then combine that with the money line for Golden State, which is like minus 1,000. But because you've got the negative correlation there, you can get minus 112 from take the minus 112 that Curry is to go under and add the money line there and get it to plus 112. So it's a nice little bump there from something that otherwise wouldn't give you a bump with a minus 1,000 addition to your parlay. But like if you look at the way that the Raptors are playing, they are not trying. They are very actively not trying. We've talked about that. And so we have to get a little bit creative in ways to find ways to bet on or against them or against guys that are starting for the other team, like the Dubs, because they're not necessarily going to need the minutes. So if you look at Curry, like it can be scary, but he's certainly been shooting poorly over the course of the last, like, I guess, roughly like 6-7 games. He did have the 40 piece against the Nets when he just really had to go off, and then he had to do the same thing against Detroit to make sure that they won that game. But the other games, like he's playing low 30s, and that's what I would project him for here is like legit 30. He missed a game the other day because clearly his back was actually hurt when he went 6 for like 21 against the Nuggets the other night. That was the talk afterwards, was like, Curry's not right. We played him for this game because we got to throw him out in the first one and hope that we beat the Western Conference team in the Nuggets. The next night on the back-to-back, they didn't have him. Stars out, bets up. We took the Dubs to win last night for that exact reason. I don't think they're going to have any trouble tonight. I just don't think they're going to need Curry in his normal rotation minutes. They have Pods back. They have GP2 questionable. He's someone you can ice for this game for sure. It's not like you need him to go out there and lay the wood on IQ, who's probably going to play 24 minutes as well, right? So then it's going to come down to the reason I don't like taking 14.5 in this one is because I can easily see the Dubs up 18 in the fourth, and Jamal Shed and Jamison Battle are out there, and Orlando Robinson, just random backups that are actually trying for contracts next year that are going to be giving it their all. That backdoor cover scares the crap out of me at 15 points. But taking the money line, there's no way the Dubs are going to mess around, and there's no way the Raptors are going to mess around winning. In the event that they even come close to winning, they would basically do whatever they could to sabotage at that point. You see the way they played Scotty Barnes 31 minutes the other night. Well, they lost by 32. So they were like, see, we're playing our guys. Yeah, you're playing your guys when you're down by 30 in the third and a half quarter. So that makes sense. But that's what this comes down to is you look at the way that they played the second half for the Raptors, getting absolutely housed by about 16 points per half over their last 5 games in the second half specifically. So I think that's what the Dubs will do here, but they won't need to do it with Curry. Like I said, the Podziemski being healthy back thing is crucial for being able to give Steph's back a little bit of a rest in this one.
Yeah, Dub's about to go on a 6-game road trip, and I will recall we took them in this situation end of February. They were hosting the Hornets before going on a 6-game road trip. Called the blowout, and they won by 36. So I don't think you need to just go money line for sure. I think you could probably go adjusted spread here, or maybe you just take the spread. Right. Maybe find a different dance partner. Curry certainly could go under. Like they were having a nice string where like he would score like 16 and everybody would score 16 and they'd still run away with it. But Steph is always a wild card. Can always light it up in a quarter or two. But I totally agree that the Warriors should run away with this, and they should probably look to get him some rest because you just reflect what the other team's doing, and the other team at this point, is not going to play their guys, especially if it's competitive.
Yeah. Give that man a little bit of rest here down the stretch. So that's all the time we have for you in this one, though. Definitely want to make sure to subscribe to that channel. Don't miss out on the player props that we have for you tonight as well. And until we see you next, happy betting.